Welcome to the third podcast as I sit outside my dermatology appointment here, Potenza Plastic Surgery up in Syracuse, New York. Frankly, there it is. Here's my setup. My car's going. And I think I can do this. I can keep it going, 31 seconds. So, here's what I got in mind. When my dad was a dentist, they used to say that dentists were pretty homogeneous. If you took 100, you could probably put 90 of them in individual switching of offices. And there wasn't a big difference between dentists that my dad started in 1953 and practiced till 83. And really, I think that statement is true, that most people were pretty interchangeable. Most of what they were doing was restorative. I mean, frankly, polyvinyl siloxane and elastomeric impressions weren't really even around until the late 70s. So taking molds of crowns, they didn't have dental insurance until like 1965, which dramatically changed things. We could talk about that as part of understanding the depth of where dentistry has come, which matters to me. I'm a chronology person. Hey, what was happening then? What was happening in the 50s? What was happening in the 60s? How old was I in the 60s? How old was my dad? How old were my uncles? What was going on? What was going on in materials? What was going on in the 70s? I started college in 74. Well, what was going on in dentistry? I'll tell you one thing. You can look at some of my dad's charts. He was charging fillings like $3, $6 in the mid and late 60s. I don't know how he sent us to college when those kinds of fees were there, other than they did a lot of $5 and $6 fillings and cleanings for $12 and whatever it was. The point is, I feel that today's dental picture is going to be not as interchangeable. 50% of dentists are women. I think that's a good move. I always have. I think it gives them an opportunity to bring different combinations of life to their scene. They can be caregiver, they can be a parent, they can be in relationships, they can travel. And so this work-life balance, I'm not even sure I got a sense of what that is. And then I heard someone say they're going into dentistry for status, and other people are doing it for income. And I do know that if you go to AI or if you go to Google and ask where dentistry fits in the top 10 professions, it'll have us there. And then it can be productive or lucrative. And then when you ask about it in terms of freedom, it's really that type of clinical practice where you can still control a lot of aspects of your life. But there are some new players showing up. Businesses or private equity or big practices are buying up little practices. The idea of going into solo private practice or a small practice, which was a huge percentage of dentistry back in my dad's era, and a big percentage in my era, is getting smaller. It's getting prohibitively expensive to learn what you need to learn. Again, there's many different ways to put it together, but at this stage of the game, when I have scanners, and printers, and CAT scan, and implant setups, and the various equipment that you need to do tricky endos, that takes years and years of practice to get the craft of that down. And again, I didn't get married until I was 36. I remember I got married in 93, and I was able to, I used a lot of continuing ed as opportunities to travel, and I learned things. Now, frankly, my friends that got married earlier kind of settled down, and my friend Kirk started taking Mish and Resnick and implant training earlier. I was still doing more basic dentistry, and there's something kind of cool about settling down, because then you have more time to be a dad, to maybe work with kids, your kids, one's own kids, and then get more and more into continuing ed, which I did, and more modeling some of the friends of mine that were doing complicated dentistry. And the thing is that now when you're working for a company, perhaps making $100,000 to $300,000 a year in terms of your income, you're really just like an expensive person, and they'll use you as an expensive person that can generate a certain amount of dollars. And I think you've lost some of the autonomy working in those big practices. So I don't know where fee-for-service private dentistry is going to fit in the future. I'd like to say, it's going to be a big part of it, but I really don't know. What I do know is that the language of that is a different language than working 3 or 4 operatories, and I can talk about that because I lived that for a while. I will tell you, I was in my early 50s, mid 50s, when I got divorced, and I had to go work in a group practice, and I enjoyed it, and I think the patients enjoyed me, and I think the staff enjoyed me. But the ownership used to say to me, geez, you're nice, and we wish you would be more like us, but you're talking too much to patients, and you're too friendly, and it's making us look bad, and we wish you would be more like us. And it was just a matter of time before it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good fit because I could be productive in one room or 2 rooms, and they wanted me to work, generating whatever it was an hour. I don't know, what was it? They wanted me to make $5,000 a day into 8, maybe $500 or $600 an hour across 4 rooms. I had to make $150. Do a couple, and we had expanded function where they were doing the fillings there. I hated that. The whole thing, you had to do endo, crown, impression, or you couldn't get credit for it. It was nuts. Now, yeah, I could go and generate $10,000 in a day in 1 or 2 rooms, which I did, and they didn't like that. I don't know if they didn't like that because it was a bad example, because they just wanted people banging it out dentistry. But one of the things I'm going to talk to you about is how you can look at a given situation and not have to put a huge soul-killing MOD composite in a number 4 or 4 and 5. And you put enough of those in and you're going to burn out. Okay, it's tough. And most of my friends that banged out restorative And I call it low intimacy restorative because you don't have to talk. It's like, this is busted. We got to fix it. But higher intimacy sharing and talking about it. Hey, would you ever consider fixing this up? They're going to be confused. How do you handle the confusion? You know, well, this is going to break again. And you can't use need dentistry when you say, oh, you need this. You could fill it. You should fill this hole. Do you need a crown? No. Would it be better? Would maybe 2 crowns here be better than sticking a bunch of composite into the very maximum fill that it can be? That's some of the language of it. I'll see you in podcast number 4. Take it easy.